se face cu 3 elemente cheie: curiozitate, entuziasm și comunicare. Acestea sunt fundația unui început bun de cât mai devreme posibil, potrivit lui Alice Sharp, expert britanic renumit în domeniul educației timpurii. Alice a venit recent la București la o conferință pe tema aceasta, la care au participat gratuit 10 de educatori români și le-a împărtășit din ce a învățat în cei 34 de ani de experiență.
They need to want to do it. And so we need to make them excited about reading. You know, if you take, for instance, I've got something here. Early reading skills and wanting to read. If you think about writing is black squiggly things usually on a page that goes with a picture and it has meaning. So this box here I use with babies to teach reading because they recognise this symbol and they know what's going to happen when I bring this box out. Because I have got lots of boxes this shape with lots of different lids on it, and when I bring out the visuals, they're reading this, so they know what song I'm going to sing, or they know what song I'm going to sing with this one or this one. So they're reading the resources and they're excited about it. And what we find in lots of situations where people are trying to teach children reading, it's boring, and the children are not excited about it. You know, and so if I was to teach you about Humpty Dumpty, who loves to sit on walls in the rain, and then I brought out these little bricks and we built Humpty a wall to sit on, that's interesting, exciting. And then my child is probably going to try and write something about Humpty Dumpty and then read it back to themselves. Reading is part of what we do. We have to think about what we're reading. So if I'm not interpreting the story, I'm just reading the words and it's not meaningful and I'm not having an emotional response to it, it's because I am not being encouraged to really think about what it's about. And if we want to stimulate the brain and allow children to think, we need to visually connect, we need to auditorily connect, and we need to let them touch and feel and do. The 3 main things in anything that we learn, the way I learned to drive was not just by reading a manual. It was by sitting in the car and physically feeling it. So the more physically engaged we are in learning, the more likely it is to mean something to us. So the children have to be Humpty Dumpty sitting on the wall. They need to build the wall for Humpty to sit on and then read the story.
Eyes, nose, cheeky, cheeky chin, cheeky, cheeky chin, nose, eyes.
I can remember when I was using a book in class, and it was about when Hitler stole Pink Rabbit was the name of the song. I was trying to teach them about war and how war is not something we want to be a part of. And so I used a suitcase, an old suitcase, and inside the suitcase I had a pink rabbit, and inside the suitcase I had, you know, battered and broken toys that I didn't want to play with because war had come. And so we make the children, there's huge amounts of science that say we need to activate the head, we need to activate the heart. So emotionally connecting children to the story means they are going to remember the story and understand the story more. But if they're just reading words on a page, they're not going to want to do it. I'm a great believer. From all of the 34 years of being a teacher, I have gathered lots of thinking, lots of knowledge from lots of people. You know, Bruce Perry, Ken Robinson, Alison Gopnik from the States, Suzanne Zedek. I mean, there's hundreds, Piaget, Vygotsky, Brunner. And all of them mean something to me, but they don't know the children I engage with in learning. So I know the children. And so my approach is I have 6 golden threads and I need to capture the child's curiosity. Every human is born with the innate, inbuilt, whoa, what's this world all about? And so we need to capture that. If we don't, there's not as deep learning. And then the children need to connect to something. So my spoons, as you asked, are all about maths, they're all about science, they're all about language, because all of these spoons can be described differently. So there's a spoon, this one has a long bowl here, it's wooden. This one is a shell handle, it's cold to touch. This one is actually made out of bullet shells to make something positive out of war. And it's really light, this is really heavy. So there's lots of mathematics going on there. If I put all the metal ones together, I am making a mathematical category. If I find the smallest, and then I find the biggest, I can compare them in size, so that's about measuring. But then, if we start to use them to move sand around, I am physically doing it with a pincer grip, which is good for holding a pencil to write, but I'm moving my wrist. If I do it with this one, whoa, I can feel it up here now, and I have to do this, whoa! If I do it with this one, it's completely different physically. So it's about fine motor skills, it's about gross motor skills, it's about descriptive language. This one's old, this one's bent, this one's long, this one's golden. So there's loads of possibilities for learning in a selection of spoons, which everybody's got spoons. So why we can't get children to be excited about learning is beyond my comprehension. Whole body learning, holistic learning is the best learning. It makes the most impact. Attachment, they need to feel attached to another human. Yeah? They need to feel that they belong somewhere and connect to somewhere. There needs to be tolerance. So you tolerate my behaviour, and I will not do it as often if it's negative behaviour. If you celebrate me, then I want to celebrate you. Respect is another one. So we need to think about and realise and know the core strengths in order to build them for the children. And if we put them in place from baby rooms or from babies, toddlers, young children, they grow into themselves at 5 to be really independent, self-aware, full of self-esteem and self-worth, and lovely little humans.
La conferință a fost și Pete Moorhouse, la origini sculptor. Atunci când a început să țină ore de sculptură pentru elevi, a descoperit cât de interesant este modul în care, prin creativitate, tinerii învață mult mai bine la școală. Asta l-a determinat să dezvolte tehnici de educație prin sculptură și tâmplărie.
The very heart of my practice is really encouraging creativity in a wider sense. And, I should say, at the moment, the world is changing more rapidly than it ever has done in history. We at the moment, we've got no idea what children's jobs are going to look like in 20 years' time. So creativity, children need the skills to adapt to a rapidly changing society. Society is going to need the innovators in the future to come up with the solutions to the challenging we're facing. So 21st, thinking skills are absolutely core to education. So developing creativity, I feel, is incredibly important within education now. So we do that by a lot of really rich hands-on experiential learning, putting children's curiosity right at the center of their learning, with a whole variety of different media, whether it's photography, whether it's work with clay, work with blocks, particularly with woodwork is one of the really wonderful mediums to use.
Why do we need creativity?
Well, basically, through being creative, we're developing two really important skill sets. We're developing our creative thinking skills and our critical thinking skills. And through using those skills, it just allows us all those possibilities, to be creative and to generate new ideas and innovation. It's also the process of being creative is incredibly beneficial for our well-being. It's sort of like it makes us feel good to be using our minds and bodies through creative experiences. But it also enhances the quality of our life. The skills around creativity are really good for problem solving. So, it can enhance life. When we encounter adversity or opportunities, it helps us navigate those and make better decisions. So creativity is enhances our quality of life in terms of our ability to be creative, but also appreciate other people's creativity as well. So for the individual, there's many factors where it enhances our ability to be lifelong learners. We're always being curious and asking new questions. So incredibly rich, but for society, fundamentally important. We need creative people in society to find new solutions.
Why is it that we sometimes lose children along the way? We teach them to read and write, but when they read a text, they don't know or they're not interested in what they're reading. Why are we losing children on their educational path? What mistakes are we making?
Well, I very much believe that we need to have children's interests at the centre of learning. I believe that children are capable of constructing their own learning if we give them the freedom. So I think far too much teaching these days is very didactic. It's very much seeing that children are empty vessels and we're just filling them with information. Whereas I believe in that social constructivism, that children can, generate knowledge themselves by asking these open-ended questions around the world around them. So learning through exploration, learning through play. And we have to look, when we look at different countries around the world, we look at Finland, for example, and in Finland, there's no pressure to do any reading or writing until children are age 8. But by the time they're age 11, they're already exceeding most countries in the world with their reading and writing ability. So in the early years, children really need to be learning through play. And through play, they'll be learning all of those important dispositions for learning. They'll be learning about resilience. They'll be learning about, how beneficial it is to learn from mistakes. They learn persistence. They learn focus and concentration. All of these skills then will enhance them to be lifelong learners. And sometimes we try and put too much information into children too early.
Celebrul scriitor și cercetător în științele educației, Sir Ken Robinson, a devenit faimos pentru un discurs de la TED Talk în care a pus întrebarea: oare școlile distrug creativitatea? Răspunsul este că deseori da.
I had a great story recently, I love telling it, of a little girl who was in a drawing lesson. She was 6 and she was at the back drawing, and the teacher said this little girl hardly ever paid attention, and in this drawing lesson she did. And the teacher was fascinated. She went over to her and she said, "What are you drawing?" And the girl said, "I'm drawing a picture of God." And the teacher said, "But nobody knows what God looks like." And the girl said, "They will in a minute."
Misiunea noastră ca societate, ca părinți și profesori, este să conștientizăm cât de importantă este stimularea creativității și a curiozității copiilor, pentru că acestea sunt baza educației și educația, la rândul ei, este baza unei societăți funcționale.